Hello and welcome to another session in the studio. Today we are joined by a woman who needs no introduction. However, I will do my best to try. We have with us in the studio Sarah Horne, florist, artist, designer, entrepreneur, business leader, all-round creative powerhouse whose journey in the flower industry has taken her from humble beginnings in Leamington to international tours around the world, and she's even won a few Chelsea medals along the way. A very warm welcome to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Jess. I can never live up to all of that.
It is absolutely delightful to have you here in the studio today. And you joined us at our summer event back in July 2025. You shared some insights into your incredible journey and some advice from being a leader within your industry, and we just thought it'd be so lovely to have you here today to record it in podcast form as well. So thank you for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it.
I'm thrilled to be here, and what a treat to come and see where you all operate from. What an amazing place.
So let's go back to the very beginning and your journey into floristry, because obviously flowers is where it all started for you. So for those who don't know you, can you take us back to the beginning of your journey?
So I first got a job in a florist shop when I was 12. Probably shouldn't have done at 12, but I always knew I wanted to do something creative, and my parents were very much, you can do whatever you want, but you have to earn the money to do it. So that took me into getting a job at a little shop in Leamington, and I loved it. I thought I was just taking it on as a Saturday job, but I absolutely loved it.
What is it you love about flowers? Because for a lot of us, we love buying each other flowers, we love looking at flowers, we admire flowers, but the depth of knowledge, like I cannot convey to listeners your depth of knowledge of not just, what flower it is, but what's its story behind it, what colours go well with it, what mood it evokes, what season it evokes. You can't learn that, can you, really? It's like an innate kind of joy for nature.
Yeah, I think there's a very deep down an absolute love for nature and an awe and wonderment really within me for anything to do with nature. So that was always a biggie for me. I knew I wanted to do something creative. I failed my art O level, which I was gutted about. Um, Thankfully, at that point, my mum had already set up the business, knowing it was what I wanted to do. And she took me to a party, which was, for want of a better word, like a Tupperware party, if anybody remembers Tupperware parties. And it was at somebody's house. And this lovely lady called Liz was showing us how to make flowers out of ribbon. So nothing to do with real flowers at that point, and making them into arrangements. And we bought some ribbon, we took it home. We both could make these from the get go. And it was sort of from that point just a hobby for us. And then I had been taught to ride horses by a friend of mine when you could just go and hire a horse out for half an hour and on the New Bold Common. And I said to my dad one day, Dad, I'd love my own pony. And he said, okay. And I thought, that's not my dad. He doesn't say things like that. And we've never had horses in our family, and my parents knew nothing about it. He said, but you have to earn the money to buy it. And so I started making these roses out of ribbon and selling them to the kids at school.
Oh.
So I'd have my desk up in registration making these roses. And I can remember my home economics teacher saying, Sarah Churchill, will you stay behind afterwards? And I thought, oh, what have I done? And she wanted to order an arrangement. And I actually did buy a pony with the money that I made from that. But in the process, realised that doing something creative like that was something I could do. I didn't need to be able to draw, I didn't need to be able to paint. And then I got my Saturday job to help this along, and it kind of went from there. But very quickly, from just doing silk flowers, so we were called House of Silk, and we were in Lillington. Um, we took on fresh flowers. The wholesaler that we took on the fresh flowers with had got a shop that he was selling because his daughter had been running it but didn't want to in town, which was on 108 Regent Street. And we moved from where we were to 108 Regent Street and took on this shop of fresh flowers. And we were so lucky because neither of us went to college. We both just had the joy of it and the love of it and a very creative streak. But we also had a silk flower wholesaler that had just sold a chain of shops in Birmingham. And they took us under their wing and basically trained us as florists, which was amazing.
Wow. And you were clearly very business minded from a young age. If you're sat there at your school desk, already a mini entrepreneur in the making. So talk to me a bit about how you've grown your business over the years from way back then doing, your silk ribbons at school to where you are now.
I guess probably the short answer is by making lots of mistakes, because you learn by those mistakes twice. And I feel very embarrassed that I say twice and not once. We've had two shops because I think I knew the first time we had two shops that that wasn't for us. I think going from one to two is the hardest thing to do. I think if you'd already got a chain, probably going from 7 to 8 would be easy, but two isn't big enough to have an infrastructure of the level of management that you need. And I don't know very many chains of florist shops that have been successful. I've been lucky enough to meet a handful of people that have done it, but they were more on the business side than the floristry side. And my passion was in the creativity. I'm fascinated by business. I love to look at other people's businesses and I'm interested to see how they work. And I can remember often going on holiday and sitting in a restaurant working out how many covers there were and trying to work out what their turnover was. It's fun. But yeah, essentially, I think it's always been a passion has driven me to go to the next thing. I love change, and I think that is something that is very gives you a lot of freedom if you love change. If you hate change, I think it hamstrings you and I think it holds you back. Whereas I think in floristry, I've been able to, for not a massive outgoing financially, try something, have a go. I'm quite good at reading the pattern that, business goes up and down, up and down. There's an undulation to it always, even however successful you are. You see yourself coming from the top of the peak down, and then you realize that you need to think of something else. What's the next thing that's going to take it back up again? So we've gone through lots of iterations and we're always changing. And I think that's a massive part of it.
Looking at some of those highs, then I alluded to it at the start, the international travel, the Chelsea medals. What have been some career highlights for you over the years?
Oh, I, I mean, the biggest highlight is that I still have a business 45 years later, because I think that is a very difficult thing to do. And I think that is there's a love of the journey to do with that. But obviously the Chelsea medals, being keynote speaker for Skewb.
Ah,
I mean,
that's up there.
I didn't even know that I wanted to be a keynote. I didn't dare tell myself I wanted to do a keynote speech just once in my life. But I've gone through doing demonstrations. I went and did, when I was first invited to the States, I did a show in Chicago for the American Institute of Floral Designers, and I had 1,200 florists in the audience for that. And I loved it. I couldn't wait to get on stage. They all thought I was crazy because usually people are in the toilets throwing up, going, I can't go on. And I'm like, let me at them. I loved it. I did a James Bond theme for it, and it was crazy. So knowing I could do that, knowing I've done a TED talk, that was the hardest speech that I've ever had to give, because I had to learn it off rote, every word timed, and they were reading my speech and measuring me on it as I went through, and we had so many practices in front of all of the rest of the speakers. It put a pressure on you that normally I will work with my hands and I'll talk, and I've got plenty in me to talk about, but I had to actually stick to the speech for that one, and I loved it, and it was an amazing thing to do, but I don't want to do another one. So to be invited then at that time, having gone through different different sort of demonstrations that I've done. I've demonstrated at Barcelona Flower Market. I've demonstrated on a little island in the Azores called Fayal, which was amazing. When you invited me to come and do the keynote, I was really, I kind of got 45 years down the line thinking there's probably not many jobs that would shock me now. And that one I just went, oh, oh my goodness, and to do a keynote and a workshop and deliver all of those flowers on the same day before 11 o'clock was like, whoa.
It was, I think, so this was our Skewb in Bloom summer event. And obviously with a title like Skewb in Bloom, we knew there had to be flowers everywhere.
Yeah.
And boy, were there. I think you had to hire a lorry or a
Yes.
van
Yeah.
just to bring
it all.
the flowers over. So everywhere you looked, there were flowers. And obviously it was a beautiful summer's day, so you would look around and they had lovely gardens at the venue, but literally everywhere, even at the umbrellas where people were having their lunch, there'd be a cascading of flowers down. So it truly was absolutely stunning visually.
It was a joyous job because you did let us go wild.
Oh,
And we loved that. We absolutely loved that. Yeah.
And you obviously joined us for the keynote speech to share some leadership advice, your learnings along the way. And you have brought, I have noticed, little memento from that time together, because obviously you have this very visual wall. And as you guided us along your journey, you had these little almost like luggage labels, brown luggage labels, with quotes on that guided us throughout your speech. So you've brought some of them with you today. Do you mind sharing again some of those kind of leadership advice and musings that you shared with us?
Absolutely. I felt when I was asked to do it, how on earth can I give a presentation to a very sophisticated digital company? And I kept saying to you, I'm one florist on one high street. You know this, don't you? And you were very lovely and reminded me of a lot of the things that I'd done and said, this is why we want you to come. And I thought it would be great fun to do an analog PowerPoint to a digital company. So it was actually a PowerPoint in flowers across the wall. And one of my things, I love quotes. I think I get that from my mum. Sadly, I lost my mum in 1990, but I think what that's done is make her influence even stronger, probably because I always know what she would have said. I know what she would have done, and I knew things that I've done in my career have been things she would love, and I knew she would have loved this job so much. And so I thought about some of the quotes that she used to say to me and some of the quotes I've since found. So, the obvious one about being a leader, feel the fear, but do it anyway. And I think it's probably even more than that. It's about learning not to fear things that other people fear. And some of that comes from the fact that I've been through pretty tough time past COVID. I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I've come out the other side having taken 15 months off. Suddenly the things that used to frighten you about standing in front of a room of people, giving them your views that they might challenge or whatever, you suddenly think that's not anything to be scared of.
Yeah.
And it has made me, I've always been, I think, quite brave to push forward, but I think that made me a little more.
Yeah, I think you shared a story at the time as well about live drawing and having a fear of that, and that was so empowering to listen to,
Pushing
and it's
yourself,
not about
really.
not being afraid of it, because that's human instinct, but doing it anyway.
And realizing actually when you do it, what you get from it, because it's that thing which I tend to be a real pragmatist, and I will break things down to as soon as it comes into my head that it's something I need to think about or work out or make a decision on. What's the worst thing that can happen is always where my brain goes, and what's the best thing that can happen. And as long as I can work out what is the worst thing that can happen, and when you think about life modeling, I was a life drawer for 5 years and I absolutely loved it. I wasn't great at it. Flowers are my thing. My teacher, Neil Moore, said to me one day, Sarah, if you could bring to your life drawing what you bring to your botanicals, you might be quite good. But I still kept going because I really loved it and it was something I wanted to be able to do. But I realised that I admired the models so much for allowing us to draw them. Um, and I also sat one day while I was drawing thinking, where's the power in the room here?
Mm.
And I realised it definitely wasn't with the drawer because we're stood there in front of easels. Everybody can see every mark you make and how bad it looks if you drew like I did. The teacher doesn't even have the power, I don't think, because he's very beholden to the model and how the models and the drawers react to each other. And I caught the eye of a male model once as I was drawing him, and I looked away and I thought that's where the power is in the room, and that kind of fascinated me. So I spent about 3 months trying to work out in my head what are the things about that I couldn't felt I couldn't do, and why couldn't I do them? Because we are all naked people before we put our clothes on every day.
Yeah.
And it's having gone through what I'd gone through with my illness, I realized that my body was an amazing thing that kept me alive. And so then you can become more proud of it and not worried about it. And as a drawer, you realize that you don't want somebody with a beautiful, gorgeous figure that's absolutely perfect with perfect skin. What you want is to draw somebody that's got something that is interesting about them. And actually, I think a very old person with lots of wrinkles or with, like just something that is not how you would think classically beautiful, something that you can actually hook onto and draw. So I realized it wasn't about being glamorous. It wasn't about, it was, and you realize how much the drawers respond to you and appreciate you. So I just thought that's kind of the ultimate thing for most people that they would never do. So could I do it? And having stood up in front of 1,200 people in Chicago and done a demonstration, I think, well, that's something that most people wouldn't do. So this felt like the next step on from it, and it actually has made me more self-assured
Mm.
from having done it. So I found it a very therapeutic thing to do.
And that's just one of the many quotes you have with you. Do you have any others that you would like to share?
So I think the thing I live my life by probably is this one. The individual has always to struggle from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely sometimes and often frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. And I think that is about knowing yourself, understanding yourself, being at one with yourself, happy with who you are. Um, you can't lead other people until you can lead yourself happily. And I think that's what that one is all about, really. It's about not being taken off on an opinion that other people have, not trying to tread the classic route. But if you have an idea that you think could work, have the confidence to follow that idea, do all the research, work it all out, but be bold enough to stand out there in front and say, I think this is the way we should go, not the way that we've always gone. It's about sort of being an individual and celebrating that and not trying to fit in.
As a business leader as well, growing your business, growing your team, there are some natural learnings there along the way about how to lead. Everyone has their own leadership style. What would you say your leadership style is that you've developed over the years?
It's hard. That's kind of a hard one. I've always wanted to bring everybody with me on the journey. And I very much am always telling my team what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I'm not one of these people who thinks if I've got a project, I keep it secret until it's all well rounded. What I realise is if I open it up to everybody, they come along on the journey from the very beginning. They also have, my team have been with me a long time, pretty well all of them. And the one girl that hasn't worked for me for so many years, I've known for many years. So they've got huge amounts of experience from different places in the business, and they've seen it from different angles. And I think it's about sharing that and bringing everybody along with you. And I follow my passions. And I know often you hear people saying, oh, you're always told to follow your passion. And in fact, it's kind of more find something you're good at and follow that, but push it out further. Not don't stay within your comfort zone with it. But my team are great at saying, I don't want to do that, but we will happily support you in doing it. You know, it's like the growing at the moment. I've got one team member who is involved with me in growing cut flowers, which we started, sort of tested 2 years ago, tested a bit further last year, and then this year we're just moving that, all being well, to a very lovely site, which isn't quite signed and sealed yet. But I'm really passionate about, you know, every seed that comes through. I'm going, look at this, guess what these are, guess what these are, they're Nigella.
Yeah.
I take them on the whole of my learning, even the team members that aren't going to get involved in the growing. So when they're selling the flowers, they know it from scratch. They've picked up a lot of the things that I'm talking about. Um, yeah, that's
Really
the
good
biggest
advice,
thing,
that,
really.
because I think it is a bit of a human trait sometimes to want to present a finished product and have this amazing, you know, grand reveal. But actually, you're going to have so much more investment if you've got people on that journey with you from day one, and more fingerprints on,
Yeah,
you know, the
yeah,
creation of that
yeah.
final moment.
And I think also it's mentioning it to other people as well. You don't know where somebody else is going to say, "Oh, do you know, I've got a field that needs using."
Yes.
If I'm at a point when I need a field for growing, rather than keeping it all quiet until it's all well rounded, they might actually be part of your journey. You don't know that.
Yeah. Shall we draw out one more? Do you want to pick one more?
Oh, failure is the condiment that gives success its flavour. It doesn't always go the way you want it to go, and you have to accept that. But there'll always be learning in there. And very often you're going to learn more from the things that don't go your way than you do from the things that go very smoothly, because you might think that you engineered that smooth transition. It might have just happened, and you might come up against something like that next time, and it'll go in a completely different direction. You maybe won't know how to deal with it.
You talked about the transition from 1 to 2 flower shops and trying that, and it maybe not working. What are some of your big failures that you've learnt from along the way?
I think that certainly is, it sticks in my mind. But do you know, I did learn so much from it. And it's having the bottle to call it when you know it's wrong. Because I think that's the other thing we do as somebody who is leading the team, leading the business. If it was your idea, and you might just try and sweat too much out of it, you're losing money all the time. You're losing, you know, time on something that could be working. So it's a case of really identifying it when it's not working. It might just be one product that you've brought in that you think, we shouldn't be doing that. I long time ago actually loved all the vintage bits and pieces, and started to buy in vintage china, and we were making little teacups out of it before actually my own range of china came into being. So that was kind of the precursor, and it had its job. Um, and I was going to the auctions, and I was buying all this vintage cups and saucers and things and putting flowers in it. And that bit of it worked very well. But then I got tempted by other vintage things. I started putting them in the shop. And a very good customer of mine, and very, very long standing friend of mine, Peter Allen from Aubrey Allen, came in the shop, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I looked at him, and he went, "You see vintage, I see Oxfam." Oh, and you know what? He was so right. And I'd been, you know, trying
Yeah.
to do this vintage dressing, and it's not you. It's not you. And that was just the best thing that
Quite
he could have
humbling
said.
too, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah, because I couldn't fight him on it. I just went, "You're right." And so that's why you should listen to other people, because sometimes you go down a rabbit hole that just isn't. But what came from it is I designed my own range of china, which has been fantastic. But yeah, you just sometimes, it's not flowers, it's not connected. You don't need those other bits. You shouldn't be doing. yeah, why am I doing it?
Talk to me a bit about the business community within Leamington, because obviously you've been, how long have you been in
45
45
years.
years in that location in
No,
Leamington?
probably been, I'm not very good at timescales, but it's 25 to 30 years where
Yeah.
we are now.
And it is a great space for local businesses, as you mentioned there. You've got Aubrey Allen, you've got your high street stuff, but you've also got those kind of local,
Lots of lovely
homegrown
local
businesses.
businesses. Yeah, Leamington Town Centre is a fabulous town centre. And yes, the high street is changing. And I think COVID brought that 5 years ahead as well. But I've always had this feeling that I want my business to evolve in a way that means if there's no other high street around me, I am still going to be a physical shop. And I think there's an awful lot of other business owners that feel the same way. And we all are individuals, but we hang together as a very nice, town centre. And I'm part of the BID, the Business Improvement District. So I'm on the board. I've been on the board of the BID since it very first started, and for a few years I chaired it. And I love that we have a BID in Leamington because um, they they lobby Parliament, they lobby the council, they beautify the town, they put on fantastic events, they connect businesses. There's even help with grants. There's all sorts of things. You feel very lonely as a business owner, and you feel like it's only you. And you also feel like you have to put a good front on. And even if things are bad, you don't like to admit it because it feels like admitting failure. And when you've got other business people that you can talk to and bounce off and help. And, I went down to, silly thing, but I went down to Henderson Hound the other day and said, my tin of dog biscuits that I keep in the shop for all the town dogs that come in is empty. I need some more. And she's just started filling up as we were talking. And I thought, I didn't even tell her what I wanted. Oh, bless her. She obviously knows these are the ones I should be having. Handed me this bag. And I sort of said to her, okay, what do I owe you? She said, no, 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 no. She said, no, I'm going to sponsor your tin this time. She said, I love that you give out biscuits to all the local dogs and everything. Of course, we then tell people that they're from Henderson Hound. And I sent her down one of our little jam jars with our own grown flowers in. And then she put out an Instagram. We put out an Instagram. We didn't get our heads together and go, as a business thing, should we do this? It was just a lovely thing to do on all sides. And that's kind of how businesses can work well together when they are in physical space, really, I think. So.
And you're such a huge part of the community as well. You mean, were you to disappear tomorrow, my mother would be devastated.
Oh.
And she's one of, hundreds of people who feel like they know you just through your work and your flowers. It must be very humbling, but also there must be a bit of pressure with that as well, to be such kind of a leading name within the community. Do you feel that at all?
Yeah, I think it's a massive responsibility, and my poor team sometimes, will be making the most beautiful bouquet and I will just be walking by going, oh, that's for Mrs. So-and-so. Can you take those out and those out and those? Because she'd like it like this. And you can see them thinking, I thought I'd done a good job. It's like, no, you did do a good job. It's just I know that customer, or it's a big responsibility, but what a joyous thing. We had a customer who came in once and we were chatting away, and he said, I think Alison called me over or whatever, and he said, oh, you're Sarah. He said, oh, it's great to meet you. He said, I've been a customer for so long. He said, and I always Sarah Horne my friends. He said, and I'm quite devastated actually because no one has ever Sarah Horned me, and that just made me laugh so much. And he came in a couple of months later. He said, you are not going to believe what's happened to me. I've been Sarah Horned.
That's amazing.
I just thought that was such a lovely thing.
Yeah. You were talking about, COVID and the changing face of the high street. If someone was looking into setting up their own business now, in today's business and societal outlook, would you recommend it still?
Oh, I think there's always a way. I think also I've got a great belief that if you put your head above the precipice when everybody else is ducking down behind it, you'll get noticed. And so when times are hard, that's the time to push it forward. And whether that's opening a new business, or I think the big advice I would give to anybody opening a new business is be individual, but be realistic that there's a market for what you do, because you need an awful lot of it churning through your business in order to actually make it a business and not just be a hobby. I think yes, it's hard out there, but your customer service has got to be great. You've got to have something very individual about your product and not just be the same as everybody else. You've got to give people a reason to come and visit you. Um, and sometimes, particularly at the beginning, it's very tough to do that. But you've got to have your social media. You've got to have a website. We took on a website quite early doors, really, and I I don't know where we would be without that, because it's not just the orders that come through, but it's the fact that people look at it as our catalogue. That's how they've got the image of who we are. And you don't know from all over the world who is looking at that.
Mm.
But you've got to look at the numbers. It's so tempting that you want to beautify everything. Um, but you've got to keep an eye on your numbers.
And in that kind of digital age where it takes you less than 10 seconds to find something online, what is going to make you stand out
Yes.
from the, potentially millions of
Exactly.
other
Yeah.
businesses out there that offer the exact same service? What does the future look like for Sarah Horne? Let's talk a bit about
Ooh.
looking ahead. And you touched upon China there, not the country, as in the crockery. You're not moving to China
I'm not
anytime
moving to
soon.
China, no.
But what excites you when you look to the future? What projects have you got coming up? What are the big things that you're excited for?
Every day is different for me, and every day is different for our business. And I think the fact that we've got lots of different strands to it, so we have our academy, so there's always new classes coming out, and I'm always excited by the classes that we're delivering, and where we can go with that space. And I don't know, what ideas are going to pop up to do with that in the future. The China, we started it, quite a few years ago, but then we just designed a collection for Mallory Court, which I'm thrilled with, and very excited at the fact that there's an exclusive arm to what I can do in terms of designing exclusive china for particular businesses. Um, so that's sort of really cool. Obviously, the artwork side, doing some artwork for you, and I'm very excited now because I could get started on that. The growing is my baby at the moment. So, having sort of tested it for a couple of years, I am super excited and wonder why I didn't discover this earlier, that I can take a little tiny seed and I can grow that until it goes into a bouquet and out to the customer. And I think what I'm excited about there is I sort of for fun was following a few of the flower farmers that, some of which were setting up through COVID, some were there before COVID. Um, and listening to them, I've heard so many of them say the growing isn't the difficult bit, it's the selling that's the difficult bit. And as a business owner, I totally understand that. I am my customer. So, in fact, I don't have to worry about that bit of it because I already buy a huge chunk of flowers. I can never grow all the flowers that I already buy. But what it means is I can grow what I want to put in our bouquets and what I know our customers will love. Um, if if we have a crop failure, I still have all the lines of purchasing from the rest of the world that I've always had and from other local growers. But I am just so excited. My poor team, I get fed up of seeing little 2-leaf seedlings, and I'll go, look, and they'll go, what is it? It looks exactly what she brought down 2 days ago. I go, this one's Nigella, and this one's Cosmos, and this one, and look, I've managed to grow hops. And it's just like, they must be, and I'm getting excited about composting and things like that. And I am on the tools with that one. I'm absolutely kind of there. I've never been fitter. I'm 60 next year, and I've never been fitter because I am doing all the lugging and carrying and lifting. And Amy, who's been with me for many years at the shop, is getting involved in it as well. And it's lovely because she loves getting outdoors. She loves the growing side, and she's supporting me with it. And when I bring a bucket of flowers back to the shop and the girls get excited by what they're going to make, it just amazes me. And it means that we can stock things that we couldn't buy because they won't travel or because they're varieties that the big growers don't think are worthy or a bit more difficult to grow and a bit fiddly to pick and all of those things. And I don't mind doing any of that. So, I'm finding that really exciting.
And it goes back to that individuality again. You only
Yeah.
that what you were growing is one of a kind. It's,
Yes,
the
absolutely.
only thing that is being made in those conditions in that
Yes.
part of the world by you. So what an incredible thing for you to do.
Yeah, I started saving our own seeds as well from things I've grown last year, and that is really exciting that we'll be then having our own seeds growing through this season. So, yeah, so some days I come out and I'm doing an art thing and I'm all dressed all arty, and then when I'm doing my growing, I look like a bag lady.
Yeah, we were talking about you arriving somewhere with your coat literally
Sellotaped
together,
literally some
and
parcel
going
tape
through
on
your
my
bag
coat
with a
as well.
squirrel.
Exactly. And
That's
my
okay.
fox that I feed and things like that. So it's a lifestyle as well for me.
Yeah.
I do love all the different elements of it.
Mm. Being a business leader for, I can see you internally cringing at the word leader, but you are, and having run your own business for 45 years, you're at a different stage of being a business owner.
Yes.
Start was very much about growth and those trying the failings, growing, seeing how you can push the boundaries. Now, some of our conversations have been slightly more reflective, that conversation around your legacy and what you leave behind, because flowers can, grow and die. So what do you want when you're looking ahead to the future? Not to write you off, but when we talk about legacy, and what you leave behind, what is that? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one because I always knew from probably the age of 5 I didn't want children. And for a lot of people, obviously, that is a massive part of the legacy that they leave behind. So, um, when I first designed the collection of china and had my own back stamp, Sarah Horne Botanicals back stamp, um, that for me is really special because that will be around, those pieces will be around long after I've gone. My artwork will be around long after I've gone. And that sort of, I think there's very much a story behind the artwork because it was taking Leamington Spa to the Chelsea Flower Show and being pushed by Stephanie from the bid to do some drawings, having always thought I couldn't draw because I failed my art O level. She sort of pushed me and said, come on, don't be ridiculous. We need some drawings for the brochure we're doing. You're very creative. Of course you can do it. Get on with it. Just do it, and that that brought out something I never thought was in me. And I love that I can draw because it was always something as a child I wanted to do. And then when I wasn't well and I took 15 months off, I got the paints out because I can't do nothing. And I went to YouTube on the days I didn't feel great and watched things. And then on the days I felt better, I actually tried them out. And I now teach painting and drawing in my academy. So those paintings and drawings will always be there, Perhaps maybe one day they'll be on Antiques Roadshow going, oh yes, it's a Sarah Horne.
It's a Sarah Horne from many years ago. Well, we are very fortunate that you are creating a piece of art for us here at Skewb, and I'm so excited to see it because I just cannot believe you failed your O-level art because your artwork is absolutely stunning.
Oh, thank you.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing some of your insights into your journey. And hopefully we can have you back again soon for more conversations because we just adore you.
Oh, thank you. I feel an honorary scuba.
You absolutely are. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.